And so it's pretty hard for us to shoot guns. So it's going to be interesting for us to go skeet shooting today. We got a pretty fun presentation in store for you today. We're going to talk about data and its relationship, and also its versus deliverability. So here's how the show is going to go for today. We're going to start by looking at what deliverability is. I know many of you have probably never even heard that word before. I wonder if it's even a word. We're going to explain what that is, and then we're actually going to show you the relationship that deliverability has with your subscriber acquisition, or as I like to call it, data intake. So once we actually show you what that is and what that relationship is, we're then going to look at why deliverability issues happen, and I'll show you the impact they can have on your brand's ROI. And it will probably be shocking for many of you. And then after that's done, what we're going to look at is just a few quick and easy tips that you can take away from today's presentation on how you can avoid these issues from occurring in the first place. So let's start with the bad news and get it out of the way. The bad news is this. I worked with brands of all sizes all over the world in the past 10 years in working in deliverability. And I can say that the largest brands in the world with an infinite amount of resources experience deliverability issues on a regular basis. The good news is that these issues, these massive issues that cause anywhere from $50,000 in revenue loss to several million in a very short time frame, can be avoided with 3 easy steps that we're going to go through today. The first one is data intake risk assessment, inbox placement reporting, and then mail stream separation. And we're going to cover those in extensive detail throughout today's presentation. So let's start with deliverability, that big, ugly, crazy word. What is deliverability? And yesterday's presentation on viewability kind of reminded me of when deliverability was first born in 2004, because people are like, what does this mean? So deliverability can be defined as the transmission of a marketer's email campaign through the internet to its customer, and it's the ability for that email campaign to reach its customer's inbox. That's what deliverability is. So I've been around way too long in this space, and I've seen the transformation of the email space really evolve over the past 10 years. In 2004, when I first started working in deliverability, brands would come to me and they would start saying, Jason, my campaign just reached the bulk folder. It's not hitting the inbox at Yahoo. Can you fix it? I would simply take a look at the campaign, and I would see that the campaign would be loaded with a bunch of dollar signs and lots of iterations of the word free. I would remove the word free. I would remove some dollar signs, and boom, it's the inbox again. The marketer thought I was a genius. We were making money. It was fun. And that was a very short-lived game. And then ISPs started evolving, and they started actually creating very sophisticated reputation tracking systems and algorithmic tracking systems that they measure and score each marketer against before they allow mail into the system. And that made our job very difficult. The other big change I've seen when comparing the deliverability landscape from 2004 to 2013 is what's called ISP consolidation. Years ago, webmail users worldwide, we belonged to several small ISPs all over the world, hundreds of them. Over the past 10 years, webmail users have migrated to what I like to call the big 4, Yahoo, AOL, Hotmail, and Gmail. And yeah, that's great. It's very easy to manage. I know that my subscriber base is roughly at one of those 4. The problem with that is that if I have a deliverability issue at just one of those ISPs, that can represent an immediate 20% revenue loss to me in my email marketing campaign. And we see that all the time. So companies come to me, especially now, and they say, Jason, I'm a mid-sized business. Why am I having these deliverability issues? I don't see someone like Walmart or Lowe's or Macy's having deliverability issues. Why is this happening to me? And we decided to answer that question for our clients. We went out and we studied 20 major marketers, and we studied their inbox placement at the big 4 ISPs for a period of 60 days last summer. And our findings were exactly what we thought they were going to be. These brands were too having deliverability issues. The first one, we saw Lowe's hit the Yahoo bulk folder on August 2nd and on August 16th. We saw Walmart hit the Yahoo bulk folder July 26th, August 11th, and August 18th. And Kohl's as well. Now, when you're really thinking about what this means, when you have a list like Walmart, their subscriber list, each time they send out an email campaign, would probably be anywhere from 4 to 20 million, depending on the segmentation that they're doing. And based on historical experience, a company of that size would probably generate per email campaign anywhere from $50,000 upwards of $1 million for one single campaign. So you can imagine just with this specific campaign right here, the fact that it didn't reach its recipients, the loss is very easy to see. And these are things that we work in all the time. So the fact that it's happening to these companies regularly is very alarming. So the $1 million question is, what's causing these deliverability issues to happen? And it's magic. No, kidding. It's called sending reputation. So much like you're forming an impression of me as I give this presentation, ISPs are forming an impression or a reputation of you every time you send mail in the system. Now, their reputation, the perception of you is actually influenced by the metrics I've listed right there. And I'll start with the negative metrics that can hurt your reputation. And you may think they're innocent, but on the back end, there's something happening against your brand. First one is an abuse complaint. So you send a message to your consumer. That consumer says, you know what, these guys have been sending me too many messages very recently, or this is not relevant to me anymore. I'm going to click the spam button on that message or the junk button. That's an innocent thing. The consumer did that. That's great. But on the back end, something's happening. The ISP is logging that transaction against the marketer, and they will only tolerate a certain amount of those transactions from that marketer before they permanently start directing that marketer's messages to the bulk folder. Typically, the standard is 1 abuse complaint per 1,000 messages sent is what marketers need to comply by. That seems aggressive, but most marketers have no problems meeting that. If you start actually breaching that specific threshold, you will start seeing your messages start going to the bulk folder, and then that's when we have to come in. Work with the ISP, look at your program, figure out what you did from a segmentation standpoint, and fix it. So abuse complaints will hurt your brand. Second negative metric is called the bounce rate. And this is when you actually send a message to a consumer, and that email address doesn't exist. So what happens is it actually bounces back, and it's not delivered. Again, you may think this is an innocent thing, but again, that ISP is logging that transaction in a negative manner against you. Typically, they'll only tolerate 10% of your overall traffic that you're sending into them in a 24-hour period to be invalid. When you breach that 10% threshold, your mail starts going to the bulk folder again. And the time frame to turn these issues around, depending on the ISP nowadays, it's not immediate. It's anywhere from 24 hours to 30 days before you actually will see that issue correct. So it's something that you need to take seriously. Most recent negative metric is what's called a message pass-by. So you're a great marketer, your message reaches the inbox. That's awesome. But the consumers are reading the message above yours and the message below yours, but they're not opening yours. And that's negative, because ISPs look at that and they say, well, these guys aren't engaging their audience anymore, so we're going to score that negatively against them as well. So it's very important that your subject lines and everything you send out is highly relevant to the people you're sending it to, because it's all based off engagement. Now that I've scared you with those 3 negative metrics, there are positive. If people are, if people are opening and clicking and engaging with your message and spending time on it, those metrics far outweigh the negative, so it's very, very easy to actually keep that positive reputation with the ISPs. So let's be clear here. If your sending reputation is low, your messages are going to reach the bulk folder. If your sending reputation is high, your messages go to the inbox. I just want to make sure that I've instilled that in everyone. All these metrics that I have right here are influenced by data quality. Depending on the data quality and how you're using that data, that's actually going to shape your reputation with the ISPs. The second main cause of deliverability issues, and this should scare most of you, as if it hasn't happened to you yet, and it will happen to your brand, it's very difficult to deal with. It's called blacklisting. Now, I've been around a long time, and I've heard a lot of people tell me about thousands of blacklists that I should be monitoring and I should pay to watch, as if my marketers are listed on there, it's going to cause catastrophic impact on them. It's false. There's actually 3 blacklists in the world that will cause significant damage. The largest, most prevalent, is Spamhaus. They're the largest commercial blacklist in the world. They protect over 2 billion email recipients worldwide. And most importantly, they've been adopted by 70% of ISPs. 3 of the big 4 utilize Spamhaus. So what this means is that if you have a pristine reputation with these ISPs, your messages reach the inbox without issue, and you get listed on Spamhaus, Spamhaus will trump that great reputation, and your messages aren't going through. And it results in an immediate 70% lockup of sending email worldwide. Again, catastrophic damage. No marketers are exempt. I've worked with companies, large and small, government agencies. Everyone has experienced Spamhaus. And the first question they ask when they actually can't understand why they can't do any more email business is, what caused this? And we've been researching this company for 10 years, and we have a great working relationship with them. And there's 2 main causes. First, how does Spamhaus know your brand exists? Spamhaus own and operate email addresses that we call learning beacons that they actually seed throughout the internet. And these beacons help give Spamhaus visibility into your marketing program, and they help penalize marketers with faulty mailing practices. Now, there's 2 types of spam trap email addresses owned by Spamhaus that exist and that will be on your list. The first one is called a honeypot. Some of you might have heard this term before. Now, a honeypot is an email address that has been created by Spamhaus that has never been released to the outside world, nor has the outside world been known that this address has ever been created or that it even exists. Spamhaus will create it. It's typically some type of name with numerical characters after the name and a spelling error in the domain. But that actual email address that looks like it's going to hard bounce is actually a real address. How this would end up on your list? Well, what happens is Spamhaus places this address on a domain somewhere out in the universe, the web universe, and there are malicious companies out there that use web crawlers to crawl the internet and actually find email addresses on web pages. When one of these crawlers finds the email address, it will then grab it, store that email address in a database. This company will then assign an IP address, an opt-in IP address that's fake, to that email address, and they'll assign a first name and last name to it. And then what do you know? You have a complete record. That record is then sellable to marketers like myself and like you. And again, we're in the game of making money and growing our list, so it's every marketer's dream to grow their list. So utilizing different options of third-party licensing of data, we'll take that measure and go down that road, and then that's how that address would end up on our list. You think you're doing a great thing by growing your list, but in the end, if you actually hit one of those spam traps, it's actually a very difficult issue to remove. The second type of spam trap that most marketers hit, and I'll give you some real-time examples of marketers recently that have hit these, is called an inactive recipient. Now this is far more common with brands today, and it's definitely scary. So an inactive recipient, and then Spamhaus definition, is an email recipient on your list that hasn't opened or clicked an email in 12 months or greater. So Spamhaus's rule of thumb is that if your recipients aren't engaged with your brand after 1 year, you should remove them and get rid of them. Very, very strict, but that's the way they operate. And that's far more common. And then what happens is ISPs will then say, look, these 300,000 people have abandoned their account and they have been active in a year. So as we're going to shut them down, but since we're partnered with Spamhaus, we're going to give Spamhaus these email addresses. They pass all those abandoned accounts over to Spamhaus, and then Spamhaus start monitoring them. The minute that you, Mr. Marketer, send a message to one of those email accounts, Spamhaus says, well, that marketer is not following our proper list hygiene techniques. And that's how the issues occur. So in my career thus far, I've resolved over 250 Spamhaus blocks in the past 10 years. None have been easy. And they all start off by innocent mistakes. And it's always an innocent mistake. And I didn't know this was going to cause this issue. Big company, Fortune 500 company, came to me and they said, Jason, our weekly revenue reports are down substantially. Can you please do a deliverability assessment and tell me what's happening, because something's wrong. And we do deliverability support for clients, for Yesmail, and actually for everyone. They came to us, and then we looked into it, and we found that they were listed on Spamhaus. Typically, this company was generating $125,000 per email campaign. They were making about $500,000 a week. And by the end of that first week that they were blocked with Spamhaus, we saw a $350,000 loss in revenue. Now, a very simple thing like a Spamhaus block, which they were treating as very minor, turned into a very difficult conversation with the CEO about a few weeks after that, explaining why they were down for the month. How this happened, someone on the marketing team said, well, look, I'm going to try to be a rock star or a hero, and I'm going to try to actually increase our email revenue by going out and taking this data that we haven't mailed to in about 4 or 5 years. And I think they must have found it in a back corporate closet. And they injected it in the system, sent it out, and then within 24 hours, this happened. So you're probably wondering, well, who gets Spamhaus blocked? The answer is everyone. Everyone, everyone, everyone. When we were doing this study, we found that Bath & Body Works was listed, Groupon, Disney credit card, Sirius Satellite. And I listed the state of Michigan on here for a reason, too. It's very important. It just shows you that the government has no workaround or no leniency with Spamhaus, and Spamhaus will block anyone. So now that you understand what deliverability is and how these issues occur, now I can actually show you the risk or the relationship between subscriber acquisition and deliverability, and show you how they actually relate to each other. So subscriber acquisition or growing your list, that's every brand's dream. Everyone wants to grow their list, have an epic email list they can send to and make tons of money. Typically, they follow these practices. They grow their list by organic signups via the website, acquired or rented data, email append, co-registration, or as I just told you about, the relocated legacy data that they found in the corporate closet. So each of those intake streams has its own deliverability risk associated with it. And when I say risk of causing a major deliverability issue, such as blacklisting at Spamhaus or bulking at one of the big 4 ISPs. So I've gone through now for each intake stream, and I've assigned risk to it. And so you can actually understand your risk when you're trying to grow your email list. So if you look at this, and you see, all right, organic signups through the website. Consumers signing up via your website, or we've actually categorized the cashier collecting that email address at the retail store in this as well. The risk was traditionally low for this intake stream, and marketers were pretty safe doing it. However, this past Black Friday, something major happened, and it actually shocked the industry. And I'll tell you about that in a second. So we labeled this low to moderate risk of causing a major deliverability issue. Now, the deliverability concern we have here is that people enter bogus email addresses at the point of sign up. Certain websites that a customer will visit for the first time are somewhat intrusive, and they'll require that person to enter their email address before that person even gets to form an opinion or even develop a little bit of a rapport with that brand. So as opposed to giving their real email address, they don't know this brand yet, they'll enter johnsmith@yahoo.com or nospam@spam.com, something like that. It's a fictitious address. The other problem is that cashiers are entering misspelled email addresses at the point of collection. Now, there's many theories as to why this is happening. Maybe it's a busy day and they're just typing too fast, or maybe that a cashier is just too self-conscious to actually ask if that's the correct spelling of a name. Who knows what it is, but both of those scenarios lead to increased bounce rates, meaning you're sending to more invalid recipients, which will lower your sending reputation and cause your messages to reach the bulk folder. The other major risk is increased likelihood of spam trap hits. The fact that people are entering random email addresses or fake email addresses, there is always that slight chance that one of these might be owned by Spamhaus. And that's exactly what happened to Gap this Black Friday. You might have heard about this. This actually did reach the news. So Gap on Black Friday had a major Spamhaus block. And Spamhaus states, they said, some of the emails Gap is sending out to spam traps are not bulk messages, but are transactional messages, mostly receipts to customers at the email addresses that customers provided the cash register. They further state, we suspect the cause is rushed sales clerks who gather the email addresses at the cash register, either typing them in manually or writing them down and typing them in at the end of their shift. Either process is fraught with errors. So see what happened there is that that's exactly what happened. They were entering wrong email addresses and just enough happened to be spam traps. And then that actually caused the block to be put in place. And then Spamhaus further writes, they say, this issue needs to be addressed not just by Gap, but by all companies that are sending significant amounts of typoed email addresses. So this may be a good time for you to review your own practices and what you're doing as it relates to signups of this nature. The next example, the next intake stream we're going to look at is what's called legacy data. And I gave you a pretty good example of how this can impact your deliverability as well. So this is any subscriber that hasn't engaged in 12 plus months. The risk here is moderate. Spamhaus clearly states in every communication I have with them, both in person and through email, that after 12 months, if there's no engagement, that probability of that person, that one email address becoming a trap, does increase. Even if the probability is 1% and you're mailing out 300,000, there's definitely a risk there that you need to be aware of. So there is the risk of Spamhaus, and there's also the risk of poor user engagement. The fact that you haven't mailed these people in 12 plus months and they receive a message from you after a year may cause some confusion. They might not understand why they're getting that message. And they're probably like, well, this is weird, and they'll probably be more inclined to click the abuse button as it seems like more of a spammy experience. You also will see increased abuse rates and increased bounce rates. The reason bounce rates increase, a year is a long time for an email address. After a year, some people like to migrate from Yahoo to Hotmail back to AOL, maybe. That last example is not likely. AOL's not doing so hot. But you get what I'm saying. People change their email address, and therefore, their address becomes invalid, and you see your hard bounce rates spike. Again, abuse rates, bounce rates, lower engagement, reputation lowering, you will start seeing your messages reach the bulk folder. And I hope I'm scaring you. I'm joking. Spamhaus writes, again, another Fortune 500 company we work with. Very, very similar to the other example I gave you. Found a very old list, and this list was frighteningly old. The traps that were hit, Spamhaus stated, dated back to 1998, 1999. And it was very, very severe. And what they did was they found this old list, and they said, well, we're going to mail it, but we're not going to tell our ESP. We're just going to send it out and hope for the best, because we think we're going to make some money off this. You can't do that. Spamhaus blocked them immediately, and they state, we cannot agree to mailing email addresses for accounts that were abandoned and not been accessed by anybody in the past year. We know that. But they do say we are seeing a disproportionate amount of spam to spam traps at company domains years after the holders of those addresses left the company. Frightening. And they said, and then this company comes back to me and they say, Jason, simply removing our subscriber list down to anyone that has engaged in the past 12 months is a very risky move for us. We can't do it. So we don't want you to go back to Spamhaus and let them know that we're willing to go down from 4 years to 24 months of engagement. And I'm like, it's not going to work. And they said, do it anyways. I'm like, you're the boss. So we did it. Spamhaus comes back, and they say, frankly, 24 months is 12 months too long. We were able to get the block resolved. The marketer did eventually realize what to do here. And But at the same time, discarding all that data, anyone that hasn't clicked in 12 plus months, is also, that's a very hard thing for most big brands to do, and we're going to talk more about what options you have there in a second. Last but not least, and my personal favorite, acquired, rented, co-reg, EAPN. I classify this as third-party data. It's great, there's a lot of companies out there that do it well. And it's just important for marketers to understand the risk that's associated with using third-party data to grow your list. And it's, when done right, it's a very effective way of growing your list. But very, very high risk of causing major deliverability issues. The concerns: increased bounce rates, increased abuse rates. For you, the marketer, when you get this third-party data, you have no idea where that address came from. You have no idea when the last time someone actually at that address engaged in a message. They might not even have engaged in the past 3 or 4 years. You just don't know the proper origins, and most companies aren't giving you this information as well. So you're really taking a shot in the dark at mailing it and hoping for the best. Bounce rates increase because with that data, just the nature of how it's collected and gathered, it's old. Abuse rates, Abuse rates increase because when you're doing this technique, you will see that users are going to receive a message from your brand, and they might not be sure why they're getting it. And the experience, though it's not spammy, will feel spammy, and you will see people are more prone to click that abuse button. And then lastly, you see increased likelihood of spam trap hits. And this is when I see people mailing third-party data, this is really the number one thing we see with this is spam house listings. Because the nature of the beast is that most of those companies that are actually giving you third-party data, they have several different data sources, and they pride themselves on having the largest database of all time that's available for consumption by marketers. And with that, they'll probably have 25 different data sources. Maybe 2 sources in there are malicious and have done that list crawling technique that most do, and have actually had that data contaminate that innocent third-party company. You mail the data, and you will get a spam house block, and it does happen quite often. Another company that we work with, a great example actually, they actually bought a list. I have no idea who it came from, but again, they did not tell their ESP. And when you're doing this and you don't tell your ESP and you just mail it, it's not good because the ESP can actually help you assess risk, mitigate risk, and work around risk. Spamhouse writes, Company X is still spamming purchase lists from new IPs as of today. Do not request removal of any IPs for this customer until the spam stops. The customer got blocked with this list from one IP set, and they moved it over to another IP set and sent the same filthy list again. Boom, blocked again, and this time Spamhouse was even more forceful. They say, good news is that if Company X quits playing games, they can easily convince us that they've removed the bad list. Spam trap hits will drop from dozens to maybe 1 or 2, as it was the case previously. Now, this is an interesting statement, guys. Spamhouse says, as it was previously, meaning that this company was hitting traps, but they weren't blocked. So it's important to note that if you do hit 1 or 2 traps, it won't necessarily mean a block. Spamhouse will monitor you, and it's only until you reach a specific trap threshold, maybe 5 or 6 or 10 traps in a specific mailing, that you'll actually see them take action on it. Lastly, they say, since Company X has hit no traps for 2 weeks, I believe we can consider this incident resolved. Can you imagine your marketing program not being able to, and you mail almost daily, not being able to mail for 2 weeks, what that damage was? I won't get into how much it was, but that was in the $1 million loss range for this company, all because of an action of trying to grow their list and not being responsible and talking to their ESP about it and learning and understanding it. So I hope everyone out there is terrified. Like, oh my God, I can never email again. The sky's going to fall. It's not the case. It's actually, as scary as this is, it can be avoided very, very easily. I'm going to talk to you about a few things today that you can do. And you can all, your ESP should be able to accommodate these as well. The first one, and this is the new standard setup for a marketer of the future, it's called mail stream separation. So much like a car travels on a road to reach its final destination, an email address travels on an IP address to reach its destination. Now, just like, and most marketers should have dedicated IP addresses now. That was very 2008. So just like there's different cars on the road, there's different mail streams on an IP address that a marketer has that are traveling to reach their consumers. And the different types of mail streams are retention, marketing, third-party, transactional. Each of those can be classified as their own mail stream, and each have their own risk associated with them. Most marketers today, I'd probably say 90% still operate with this structure, utilize this architecture when sending mail to ISPs. This is a great illustration for explaining a very difficult concept as well. You can see that most marketers right now, look in the top, that's their IP address, and their transactional mail, their marketing mail, their retention mail, it's all going out over that one IP address, or 2 IP addresses, but they're both, it's all housing all of it. What happens by nature is that the marketing messages generate higher abuse complaints, And typically, we'll see deliverability issues more often. So let's say a spam house block hits this marketer. Now you can see there's actually a roadblock. In this case, a Gmail block happened. Now you can see that all mail streams are affected. So this marketer's program is completely paralyzed with Gmail. They cannot deliver all streams. Even though the marketing stream caused it, they can't deliver their retention messages, nor can they deliver their transactional. So the setup doesn't work anymore. So the landscape's changed. So now what we've started doing is we've invented a new setup for marketers now. It's called mail stream separation, or multiple mail streams. So we take that same marketer and we set up 4 different IP addresses for them to actually send mail from. And you can see that the marketing stream, yes, it did have that issue in the top with Gmail, but you can see the rest, transactional, retention, and third party, it continues delivering without issue, and it's not impacted by that marketing stream. The problem with this structure is that you don't even realize it, but you're actually introducing a single point of failure into your marketing program. So it's definitely something you should have a conversation about and understand. And what's interesting about this too is you can even see third-party data in there. You can safely mail third-party data as long as it's going out over its own IP stream. And yes, deliverability issues are going to happen with that, but it won't impact your brand's ability to deliver to the transaction and the retention streams. And 2, you can take this one step further. For clients out there that actually want to mail people that haven't engaged in 12 months plus, as that's still a very relevant crowd for most brands, you can create another IP stream and call it the legacy data stream, and you can mail that data over a different IP set. Again, still branded to your brand, but it goes over a different IP set and won't introduce a single point of failure. Now, is Spamhouse for this? Absolutely. They know that we've structured many clients that way. And they actually know, well, you know that this IP block is going to be blocked for a while, and we're going to talk about fixing it, but at the same time, we're not going to penalize the rest of your brand for doing so. All right, and then, so that's a big one. That's a big proactive step you can take. The next one, and this is very basic, but very effective, is inbox placement testing. So before your campaign, and again, I've seen so many clients waste money sending out campaigns that never reach the recipients. 72 hours before your campaign goes out, you should actually be generating an inbox placement report. And what this report will show you is actually how your messages or email campaigns are inboxing at ISPs large and small across the globe. There's no point sending out an email campaign that's bulking at 2 or 3 of the major ISPs, as you're not going to reach your recipients if that's who you're targeting. You need to re-optimize. You need to figure out what the problem was. And your problem can either be tied to creative content or it can be tied to your sending reputation. Once you understand which of those it's tied to, there are ways to fix both of those. Make the fix and then send out the campaign. And you'll see far better return. Here's an example just of an inboxing report that we use in one of our solutions. And you can actually just see that on the right, the green would represent the inbox placement at each ISP. So you can see that this company was having an issue with Comcast. And the next one, and this is very, very common and very relevant in today's landscape, and there's actually a few providers here that do this too. Frequent data hygiene. So taking your list and running it through a data hygiene solution before you mail will actually do great things for you. It's going to do 2 things. Number one, it's going to actually let you know if that email address actually exists. If it doesn't exist, don't mail to it. Pull it off the list. And 2, data hygiene solutions will also let you know the probability of that address being a spam trap. We have enough research now in the marketing world to understand what spam traps look like, how they work, and what to watch out for. So you can actually run your data against that as well and remove likely spam traps, which is very effective for marketers. And something else that's very, very popular as well, and that would have been great for someone like Guest, and it's really great for any marketer that's collecting data at the point of sign-up, is real-time verification. So now marketers can actually, at real time, on their sign-up form, hook up with a hygiene company. And at real time when they're signing up, when that person's going to submit that form to your website, you can actually do the check to see if the address exists. If it doesn't exist, pop an error saying, this address doesn't exist, please enter a valid email address. And here's an example that we use with our system. I entered 123@fake.com on the web form, and you can see that it actually didn't let me proceed. It called it out immediately. This is very, very inexpensive. So let's summarize and conclude. I know I've thrown a ton of great stuff at you, scary stuff. Generate inbox reports before your campaigns go out. Don't waste money sending campaigns that don't reach people. I see marketers miss this step all the time and then come back wondering why performance was low. It's a very, very easy thing to do. Number 2, ensure you're on dedicated IP addresses. I'm sure most of you are, but I always like to throw that reminder out there. But have a new conversation with your ESP about setting up multiple mail streams for your brand. And then 3, perform data hygiene. I like to say, we tell our clients every 12 months at minimum. The more frequently you do it, the better, but it might not be that relevant to you to do it more frequently depending on how often you collect data and where that data comes from. And then lastly, ensure that your IPs are scanned at Spamhaus at minimum every 24 hours. We scan actually all of our clients every hour. Just the sooner you know about a Spamhaus issue, the sooner you can start working to correct it. And they're not easy issues to correct, nor do they actually turn around within 24 hours typically. So, saying that, I hope you guys enjoyed this today. I'm definitely here for questions. One, shameless self-plug, Yesmail Interactive, we have launched a new deliverability intelligence product that gives you all the deliverability measurement needs. It's very similar to Return Path, but it's actually 50 to 60% cheaper, so it's very disruptive. We're very, very excited about it. And we also launched a new product called Data Intelligence. It's a hygiene solution, both real-time and done in batch. And for all the brands here today, I'm going to make a crazy blowout offer. Come talk to me, and we'd love to give you a free deliverability assessment and test drive to our new platform, and we'll give you 10,000 records scrubbed for you. Thank you.
Thanks, Jason. That's great. Any questions for Jason? Anyone? A lot of information, a lot of best practices. We like that. And David, you're from Yesmail. David over here is from Yesmail. So if you